let me ask you something. When did you first start believing certain things about money? And more importantly, have you ever stopped to ask yourself if those beliefs are still serving you?
You know, Chris, that's the kind of question that can change a person's life. And in today's episode of the Part 2 conversation with Michael Scarpati, you guys didn't hold back at all.
We talk about how our childhoods shaped our money habits, how neuroplasticity lets us literally rewire the way we think, and why money is not the goal. It's just a tool.
There's also a lot of gems in here about entrepreneurship, mindset, and why chasing financial independence without knowing what enough looks like can actually leave you feeling emptier than you ever expected.
This one's for anyone doing the inner work, not just the math. If you're rethinking what wealth means to you emotionally, mentally, and practically, this is your episode.
So with that being said, let's dive into Part 2 with Michael Scarpati with the Fi Guys.
So I use my background in psychology, and I basically am that person's therapist. Like I don't even call myself a financial advisor. I call myself a holistic financial consultant because I'm trying to look at it as I am your therapist. I'm trying to make you conscious of it. So we run through a bunch of different exercises. Like I have so many different ones, but typically it's, envision yourself in 10 years. What do you want that life to look like? Now we'll do 20 years, 30 years. If there's a partner included in that, that's when things often get a lot more complicated. And I'm not just playing consultant, I'm also playing like couples therapist. And of course I have to make a very big distinction that like, hey, I can't do this, but you guys might need to see a couples therapist too. I've told this on the pod before, but I've had clients before who's like, the wife's goal was to get a boat in retirement and sail around the world. And the husband's goal was to retire in Montana. And they were just like, they're going through life. They're struggling with money. They're fighting about all this stuff. And it's like, well, because from a first principles perspective, you guys both have completely different goals. And when the husband said that and the wife said that, they both stared at each other like, what the hell are you talking about? And of course, they're never going to feel aligned because they're both swimming in completely opposite directions. So first, we have to go through that. And I do a lot of therapy in quotation marks, as to what's going on. Where do you want to go to? And then from there, I do the opposite of you. I see, okay, this is where it is currently happening. This is the projections of what you're doing right now. This is how much you're spending. This is how much you are projected to have by the time you reach retirement and the goals that you set. Are you comfortable with that? Because, people will always say, oh, I want all of these things. I want to have this, this, and this, and this. And it's like, all right, that's all well and good. What are you willing to sacrifice to get all those things? People are like, I'm not willing to sacrifice anything.
Right.
Like I want all of it. And I always say, you can have anything you want in life, but you can't have everything you want in life. And by showing them like, this is the vision, life you have envisioned, and this is what you're currently setting yourself up for. And usually like life's way up here for what they envision, and what they're setting themselves up for is like way the hell down here. Yeah, my process is usually about a year long of working with the people to get them to be where they want to be. But man, those first 6 months is just setting the goal. Like making sure, because I always find that too many people, they're set their goal or they put money as the highest order. Money is the goal. And I've always said, and people listen to the podcast are going to know this, money isn't the goal. Money just facilitates the goal.
Yes.
So the first thing we need to do, and through working with me or working with a professional like yourself, is find out what are your values. What do you actually want? Because money isn't going to be the value. At the end of the day, no one's going to be in a graveyard and someone's going to come up to their grave and be like, wow, they made so much money. Like they won.
Yeah, right.
Like they're really going to look at, the quality of the relationships, of how much love they had, how much admiration, how much, whatever you want to say, whatever your value is. I'm not here to tell people what their value is, but I can tell you that money is not the value.
Yeah, it's just a tool.
What do you think about that, about my process?
It's just a tool.
Yeah.
I love your process. That phrase that you said is going to stick with me. It was, you can have anything in the world, but you can't have everything in the world. I've never heard that before. That's great. And it's so true, right? It's so true. And understanding where the rubber needs to meet the road in terms of what needs to be sacrificed sometimes to achieve specific things. And that's where it kind of all goes back to habits and your relationship with the money at the end of the day. Right. Like some of the things that were instilled as me as a kid have helped me in building personal wealth over the past 15, 20 years, because I'm just like overtly conscious of wasting money on dumb shit. It's been instilled in me for sure, but it's something that I think is a habit that needs to be formed. It's like a muscle that needs to be worked out over time. And you got to like really work to catch yourself and value how the money flows in and out of the household on a daily basis, right? And it's not, I think there's a major difference between like, where do you draw the line? I think with that is like being frugal versus like not enjoying your
Being cheap.
life, right? Being cheap. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just
right. Yeah. Like not like there's definitely a fine line there without a doubt. But I think it's, how we can understand where we want to go, then help shape, what those habits need to actually be. Right. And it may,
yeah.
and sometimes it's not even being wasteful. Sometimes it's just being smart. Right. If we have the ability to save, and let's say we're saving 3 or 4 thousand bucks a month, but it's all just going into the checking account that has no interest, and we have 100 grand sitting in checking, and like no serious liquidity issues that we need to worry about. It's a simple tweak of, well, this money should be compounding interest at 7 to 10% if it's for some long-term savings. Like that makes a major, major difference. And it's just being conscious. That kind of flows back to that financial consciousness. Is it's mindset plus habit, right? Awareness, and like how our decisions impact the big picture as well.
Tell me more. Tell me more about that, the financial consciousness, because you mentioned something earlier that really spurred an interest in me. It's something that my first two meetings typically, and like our first meeting is usually about 2 hours.
Yeah.
The second meeting, then it goes an hour each time after that. But the first meeting, and it's the same question, and if anyone who's gone through my course knows, the first question I ask is, what did your parents teach you about money? What I found from, wanting to be like a child psychologist for a little while, wanting to do all that stuff, is that most people's money habits is formed by the age of 7 years old. So most of the things that people are doing in their life, the overspending, the hyper accumulation, the whatever it is that they have, it was formed by memories they have from before 7 years old. And I would say the age of like 1 to 2 or 0 to 2 is probably moot. Like I don't remember any of that. So finding those memories, and then we can take those memories from there and then now say like, oh, this is the reason I keep doing these things. And there was a psychologist, his name is Carl Jung, one of my favorite psychologists. He was the father of analytical psychology.
Oh, yeah, he's the man.
And he said, yeah, he's the man. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to dictate your life, and you will call it fate.
I was about to finish your sentence there, man. I love that quote. I love that quote so much. And that couldn't be more true for money. Like that is something that I think anybody can see the truth of that statement when it comes to money. It's like, I'm broke, right? That's a mindset. It's also the result of unconscious behavior with money, right? There's plenty of people that don't make a lot of money that are not broke, right? But what's the difference, right? The difference is they are very strategic and hyper focused and super conscious with how money flows and what the relationship with money is, and how they value every dollar that they've earned, and whether they hold on to it tightly or whether they just don't really think about it or care about it as much and just kind of go around living their life. And that couldn't be more true with how the future will be dictated by those unconscious behaviors. And I love that you brought that quote up. That's a good one. That's fire.
Yeah. And then I've always also found that as people kind of go through life, the way that I've kind of envisioned it is the relationship they have with their money is the way they have the relationship with their unconscious self. So too many people that go through life thinking that money is the issue. Money is the problem, all this stuff. And yes, we can talk about economically, maybe from like a Federal Reserve perspective, like, yeah, money is an issue from like that. It's a non-fiat, like that it's a fiat issue, and that, it's all just by decree of whatever somebody decides to do it.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever read the book, The Monster at Jekyll Island or something like that. It was made.
I'm familiar with the story.
The creature of
Jekyll
when
the
Island.
Fed was created at Jekyll Island that one weekend or whatever it was, but I didn't read the book, but I am familiar with the story.
Yes, it is. It is very wild to realize. So that's a separate issue. That's a very separate, it's a completely different discussion. We could talk about that for 20 years, but it's a completely different discussion. But what I find is that people will say like, "Oh, money's the issue. Money should change so that I have a better relationship with it." And I always equate it back to like marriage and family therapy. When you're in a relationship with another partner, or with a partner, and that partner isn't acting the way that you like it to. Your goal is not to change them. Your goal is to change your relationship to whatever the issue is. Because the problem isn't the problem. The problem is your way you're relating to the problem.
Yes.
At least within a relationship, like a couple, that human being has the propensity to change. Even though they will likely not change, they at least have the propensity to. Money will not change. Money is what money is. Money is a tool. Money is like a hammer. And if I don't like hammers because hammers are bad, I can't sit there and just wish that hammers would be good. I need to change my relationship to hammers. Yep. Same with money. So when I look at someone who has a bad relationship with money, I say like, okay, you have a bad relationship with yourself.
Yep.
And that's the way I kind of look at it. We work on that. And once you figure out, that's why I say before we even started this call, that I almost look at myself as like a life coach, but I'm using financial advising as the bridge in there to be able to make someone a little bit better. Because I think it was Miyoda Musashi that said, the one who sees the way broadly sees it, or the one who knows the way broadly sees it in all things. Once you fix the money thing, so many other parts of life just seem to fall into place so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the thing that's really interesting, you mentioned that the habits are created up until the age of 7. And so the major reason for that is, as a human being, your brain is in the theta state up until age 7 or 8, which is basically hypnotherapy, suggestive state. Your subconscious is essentially just being programmed. That's how, and then it starts to flip into other frequencies of brainwaves. But when you're in the theta state, you're basically just being programmed, right? So for those of us that are out there that have children or starting to like think through this relationship with money, you know, keep that in mind. That it's the suggestive nature of the human mind up until about age 7 and 8, where then the theta state as the default state flips for a human being. And that's where all those habits are essentially created, right? You're just receiving. You're just a sponge learning by observing what's around you and what's being taught to you. So, you know, as the new generation comes up, right, we have the ability to shape the relationship with money in those formidable first, 7, 8 years of life, and really dramatically change what their future relationship with money will look like if we're consciously aware of it.
So much of it is just being conscious.
Yeah.
Just waking up for the first time to realize that I'm just going through life habitually reacting to things without actually thinking them through. What would you say is the best way for parents, if they can kind of awaken to that financial consciousness, to go about showing their kids a better way? And before I say that, I do want to preface this one thing. To the adults out there who's listening to this podcast and being like, well, I was programmed the wrong way from age 1 to 7. Neuroplasticity is real.
Yeah.
You do have the ability to rewire your brain. It just takes more time. It takes more effort. But those synapses that have wired together, wire together, wire together. So over time, yes, that path has become very worn down, just like a bike path, very worn down over and over and over again. That doesn't mean that you can't get yourself out of that rut and find a completely different path. It's just going to take a little bit more effort.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And one of the things that I've found is really helpful in that, and it doesn't need to just be associated with money, but anything when you're dealing with unraveling conscious belief, subconscious belief systems for yourself, start to a really helpful tool that I found for this is when you notice a behavior or a feeling or a thought that isn't necessarily where you want to be aligned, asking the question to yourself, what would I need to believe to be true in order for this thought to be present? So what's the sponsoring belief of that thought? And that might be something that you saw when you were 6 about, or way your father or your mother explained something to you about money. But like you do need to, one of the easiest ways to create those new tracks and like put some fresh powder right over the tracks is to collapse the belief from the point of origin, which is, what do I need to believe to be true? And once you can find that, okay, I must believe that money's evil. And it's like, okay, why do I believe? And you have to do that. You can do this process. You can do it through therapy. You can do it through hypnotherapy. You can also do it through yourself by just sitting in meditation and rewinding the clock. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? And eventually you will find it. You'll find it. Oh, and the memory will pop back of, you had a talk one day with your grandfather and you were 5 years old and somebody screwed him over because of money. And he said to you, like dead in the eyes, money is the root of all evil. You can't trust anything about money. And it's like that stuck with you and that became true and is dictating a lot of the subconscious relationship that you have with money, like that process can be super helpful, not only for money, for anything really in the subconscious. But I'm definitely a deep traveler of the subconscious mind. My father is a clinical hypnotherapist.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm pretty well versed. My dad's a wild dude, man. His main business for 30 plus years has been producing comedy shows. He was one of the biggest comedy club owners in the Northeast in the 80s and 90s for years, comedy cabaret. And then through that process and through just life, got connected with hypnotherapy and still does both to this day. He has a clinical hypnotherapy practice, but I've been very, well versed and indoctrinated into the power of the subconscious through Andy Scarpati. That's for sure.
That's really cool. It's funny when I talk with my clients, or I talk with people about this kind of stuff. Most people are just kind of go, "That's too woo woo. That's not real."
I know.
It's like, okay, it's going to continue to dictate your life until you're willing to at least look at it and kind of entertain the idea that the rabbit hole is much deeper than you think.
Without a doubt. It's tough to get out of the lens of judgment a lot of times, because funny enough, guess what? It was conditioned when you were between the ages of 0 and 7 or 8. And it's dictating even your perspective on things that can help you. It's sabotaging you, which is funny.
Since you are so deep with yourself, maybe knowing hypnotherapy, having this background, what does money mean to you?
I think it means possibility to me. It means possibility. We've said a couple times that it's a tool, and it can be a tool for good. It can be a tool for bad, right? We see it all across human history. But at its core, to me, it's possibility. You can do with it what you want, and you can do it to impact your own life. You can do it. You can be just waste it. You can do it to impact humanity. The possibilities are really endless. So it's like a blank canvas to me when I think about what it truly is. It's a means to get things done, but at the end of the day, it's unlimited possibility. It's like how we wield that power is what determines the outcome.
Yeah.
What about you? How would you answer that question?
Yeah. So I do a lot of my own meditation, my own thinking on this. So, the best thing about doing like financial research is it's really financial me search. Like I get to just search myself, but past me would have answered that with security. I grew up financially relatively insecure.
Yeah.
Like we always, like we had meals every night. Like we weren't there, but I know there was a lot of fights, a lot of concern, a lot of like, are we going to lose the house? Will we have a place to live next month?
Sure.
The car breaks down, something goes wrong and you're done. So for a long time, it was just security. I needed money to feel stable, that I was just okay. And that served me for a really long time. It helped me to achieve a level of financial independence that I could have only have dreamed of as a younger person. The ability to create my own company, the ability to live a really wonderful life that allows me to do a lot of stuff. And now that I'm looking at it, that lens that I look through it, of it being security, it being safety, is no longer serving me because it's holding me back from being able to live the best life. So I'm still in the process of unwinding that, to kind of go back to our earlier conversation about the neuroplasticity. You have the ability to change what happened. And I'm just like you, looking at money as optionality. It gives me choice. It gives me choice to live the life that I want, the choice to be able to help people, to help myself, to help others, to do whatever it is that I want. And the way that I want to choose to do that is to serve other people, to hopefully get money out of the way so that they can live whatever life they feel is best for them. Because for too much, our system of capitalism is all telling you that you're not enough. You need more. And my thought process is, you're perfect the way you are. Can you be better? Sure. Yeah, you definitely could. And you don't have to be.
I love that, man. That's perfect.
So as we close out, I do have a few more questions for you, but you've been so gracious with us, Michael. I would like to hand over the podcast to you for a little bit to rep yourself, tell us about Retire US or Retire Us, and anything that our audience members go to find you. And of course, I will link everything in the description.
Well, thank you very much. This has been so fun, Chris. Like, this is love getting into this. We got a lot deeper than I thought we would. Probably most people thought we would. And it was really a lot of fun. For us, the story is pretty simple, right? We're here to give everybody access to the highest level of financial professional advice at a fraction of the cost. So our subscriptions range from anywhere from $60 a month to $150 a month. You can work with these levels of these level of professionals for no asset minimums, no requirement to move your assets and have that managed. That's there to be supported as well if it's needed. But the real purpose is to build systems, right? To build these frameworks, to put a clear path in place to achieve financial freedom, however that is defined by you. And the platform, retire.us, just makes it really easy to get started, really easy to get, hold yourself accountable, and really easy to interface with this team of professionals. So you can get started for free at retire.us. We have a financial checkpoint, we call it. And this is kind of the first level of financial consciousness, is understanding your current financial situation. So the checkpoint takes about 4 to 5 minutes. And what it's going to do is give you a quick assessment on your retirement pacing, your tax planning, your risks of failure, and it pulls out what we call financial red flags. So these are the blind spots. These are the unconscious that are dictating our life, and we're calling it fate, right? These are the things that we need to understand to chart the course more consciously and more effectively. And then from there, it'll recommend different subscription types. It's not a one size fits all approach. There's different ways, depending on where you are in your journey. If you're just kind of building the foundation for financial success, that's our basic planning tier. If you've already have some things in place and you're really focused on tax diversification, reducing your future tax liabilities, tax mastery is the second tier, and then wealth mastery is the top tier, which is really encompassing all aspects of your financial life, including the legacy that you'll ultimately leave. So it's pretty simple. Retire.us is the domain. At retire.us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Will be pretty active in Q3 of this year. We're really building a ton of content that we'll be sharing a lot. So follow along if you're interested in this type of financial consciousness, financial mastery topics for your personal finances. Yeah, we're happy to be a resource however we can.
Thank you. I'll link all that in the description. Now, I told you I had 2 questions, but there was a third question that I remembered that I wanted to ask you earlier. So here at the Five Guys, we're really about mindset, the psychology, the philosophy of money. One thing when you talk about being an entrepreneur is you were able to succeed in an industry that typically 1 out of 10 people succeeded. And that's the financial services industry. 1 out of 10 people make it through 5 years.
Yep.
What is it that you think separated you from those other 9 that didn't make it?
So I think that there's a couple of things that will make any entrepreneur successful. And one of them, the first and foremost one, is belief, unwavering belief in your ability to do it. So I'm a competitive guy. I was an athlete, my entire life. And I always have had high belief in my ability to win in whatever I'm putting my mind to, but also my ability to gain the skills required to win, right? To put in the work and gain the skills required. So I think having that belief in yourself and whatever it is you're going to do is the core foundation to me. And then the other thing I would say is just brute willpower. Couple those together, nothing's going to get in your way, right? Willpower will lead to action. Action is required to manifest anything in life. And so if you know where you want to go and you believe that you can get there, and you just have relentless willpower, meaning, whatever it takes, I'm going to get up, I'm going to continue to move until it happens, it will eventually happen, right? It will eventually happen. Now, granted, life circumstances and external factors will get in the way, and there's going to be a lot of strategy that's involved to make sure that you can navigate. There was a time in that early career where I had no money in my bank accounts. I ate ramen noodles every single day. All my credit cards were maxed out. And it was cool. I wasn't stressing about it because no matter what, I was going to find a way, right? I was just purely determined of that belief and willpower to get over the hump. And then ultimately, you get through the swamp is a terminology that we use. You're constantly in this business. And when you start, there's a beautiful island, but there's a 5-year swamp.
It's way off in the distance.
And you're just trudging it. But the thing is, as long as you keep moving forward in the swamp, you're one step closer to getting there. And I think any entrepreneurial journey is like that. I think people get caught up in trying to be the unicorn all the time. And, they feel like they're not a success unless they're worth, making $1 million a year in their business or whatever it may be. But to me, success in entrepreneurship is the relentless pursuit of just getting a little bit more better, getting a little bit more better. more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until finally things start to then become easier. And, once you're through the deep part of the swamp and you're getting closer and closer to shore, each step's a little bit easier. And then finally you get to that island and you go, all right, this is great. Now let's build on the island. Now let's see how cool we can make the island. And that's just a new chapter in the entrepreneurial journey.
It's funny. Here at the Fi Guys, we always say aggregation of marginal gains. I'm not asking you to go from where you are to Warren Buffett. 1% better.
Yep.
That's all I'm asking for is 1% better. You compound 1% after 2.5 months, you're 100% better.
Yep.
Just keep on going and going and going.
Love that.
So next question that I have for you. If you could go back to younger Michael, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, actually, when you were just getting started in this industry, getting started in your entrepreneurial rabbit hole. I mean, I know you were an entrepreneur when you were a kid, but like really getting into it. What advice would you want to give that young man?
I wish I would have spent more time learning myself early. I didn't really know who I was until like age 30, right? And so it's hard to have a very clear vision of what you want to bring to the world if you don't know who you are first. And as a nature of the business, I was constantly in it, fighting for my life in the beginning, right? For many, many years, where it just required a lot of time and a lot of energy focused on building this thing, which at the time was a financial planning practice. And no time was really being spent on understanding who I truly was. And so I would really I would have encouraged that version of myself to take what we call now a clarity break, which is like a couple of days, no noise, no other people, just you by yourself, going inward and like really understanding what are my core values, right? What's my mission in life? What's my vision for the future? What are the agreements that I have with myself in terms of how I show up? What's my MO? What are my boundaries? All these things that you eventually get to a point in life, hopefully, where like you have some space to reflect. Most of the time, though, it doesn't happen until there's like some sort of a traumatic event that forces you to go inward, right? Whether that's a breakup or changing jobs or whatever it may be, death in the family, all these different things that kind of force the isolation or force you to go inward. I was gifted with that opportunity. I got really sick a couple of years into the business. I was like 4 or 5 years in the business, and I was basically out of commission for like 2.5 months. And it was the first time in my life where I went inward and I became introspective. And what I found was I did not want to get better because I did not want to go back to the life that I was in with this grind of building the financial planning practice. And that was the origin of us really building a true practice, myself and Michael Blausch. I called him up before coming back. I was like, dude, we got to switch something. I'm so miserable with this. And like, it was the first time I ever really figured out who I was and what do I like. And, if I would have done that, I wish I would have done that before going to college, honestly. Like, I think that would be a really helpful, whether this is popular opinion or not. My opinion is people should take a gap year coming out of high school and find themselves, figure out what they really want to do, get some experience, take some internships, see what you like, see what you don't like, and learn like who you are so that you can go into that. If you're going to go to college, you can go into it fully present and grateful and excited about the information that you're going to get from that experience, not just because it's the societal norm. That going inward, learning the self is, I wish that would have been more like beat over my head as a younger human. It would have been helpful.
I think it's so difficult because, there's that old Socrates quote, know thyself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone hears that and they're like, of course I know myself. I know when I'm hungry. I know when I'm sad. I know when I'm happy. It's like, do you really?
Yeah.
Do you really know you? What way did you find was the best way to start that journey? Because there's another quote that all of man's discontent comes from his inability to sit in a room by himself.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was prompted to sit in a room by myself. Basically, I had mono, but it was really bad for whatever reason, and it was just me in isolation because I couldn't be around other people like too much. That I just sat in a room, but I started journaling is what was the prompt. So I started sitting there and finally got onto like meditation really for the first time, where it wasn't just like sitting there and just with my eyes closed breathing, like doing more guided meditations and doing more stuff that kind of quiets the mind and then journaling. And journaling was like the big unlock, where it was finally getting these thoughts out of my mind onto paper to say, like, what do I care about? Like, what do I like and what do I dislike? And why am I stressed? What am I stressed about? It's something so therapeutic about that process of getting it on paper. Then it becomes real and you can read it back. Sometimes it just flows through you, right? You don't even know what you're writing down. And then you read it back, like, wow, man, something's got to change. This isn't a healthy way to live. So it's that isolation, I think, taking the time, and it's challenging, right? We live in a busy world. We're in the habit of being busy, and our attention has been hijacked by social media and the way that dopamine is being regulated in our brains now because of that stuff. It's very tough to separate yourself from that. It can take time, but once you can get into that space and like feel calm and at peace, then it's easier to start to really understand who you are at the core.
Maybe at some point we have to have you back and do a deeper conversation into getting into that place, to going down into that place to discover the self.
I'd be happy to, man.
As someone who does it regularly, it's very ineffable. It's hard to describe how to do it. I love the idea of journaling. I love all those things that you mentioned there. Now, our final question to you, and this is the question we ask everyone.
Yep.
Here at the FI Guys, we obviously, FI stands for financial independence. What we've discovered over the years of doing this is that financial independence means something very different to every single person. So, Michael, I'd like to ask you a two-part question. Number one is, what does financial independence mean to you? But more specifically, what is enough?
To me, financial independence means choice. It means optionality, right? It means possibility. It's not being constrained by the price tag of things. It's only being constrained by the imagination of how we want to live our lives, and not being a prisoner to the dollar, right? Having the dollar be a tool that we wield, not something that we are constantly chasing or under submission of. And what's enough? It's hard to define what, enough to me, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's whatever fills your cup is enough. And that doesn't need to have anything to do with money, right? Enough can be a family that loves you, and, a great spouse, great children that you get to spend time with. And your bank account could have nothing in it, and it's plenty, right? Because you're with what matters. So I think it all depends on your values. For me, enough is, what's enough is piggybacks back to like the independent stuff. Enough is not having to sit there and calculate and pinch every penny and to see if we can do the things that we want to do to impact humanity and serve others, and also make ourselves comfortable and be in enjoyment without stress. So I think enough, that there it is. Probably enough is like where there's no stress. Yeah, it took me a minute to get there, but I think that's where I would say you're at enough when there's nothing to stress about financially, right? All the things that make you happy and fill the cup are able to be done without having to see if we have substantial financial means to do it. Enough is like we don't need to think about it. We don't need to focus on it. We know we have enough to live the life that we see fit.
I like it.
It took me a minute to get there. It's a long way.
It's a hard question that doesn't really have an answer.
Yeah, right.
So, I've been reflecting on that question for the past 2 years, and everyone has
2 years of reflection. How do you answer it?
Yeah. So the question's a trap.
Yeah, I can tell.
What is enough? It's a trap because there isn't enough.
Right.
You will never have enough. The nature of desire, of craving, is that it's never satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you achieve whatever it is that you wanted, you realize that the way habitual reactivity works and how we have this hedonic treadmill of life is that the moment you achieve whatever it is that you thought would make you happy, you immediately want the next thing.
Yeah.
It's the way the world works. So rather than asking the question, what is enough? Ask yourself, what is good? Is this serving me?
Yeah.
Am I good here? Because the moment you say, is this enough? It's not. It won't be. It won't ever be, because our brains, we have this 10,000-year-old brain, this modern day body.
Yeah.
You will never have enough until you decide to take yourself out of the game. And I don't mean by killing yourself, sorry. I mean by deciding to stop striving, to stop craving, to just be happy with what is, and to have the ability to hold two competing ideas. I'm happy with what is, and it can be better.
Yeah.
And that is hard for people to do it.
Yeah.
And it could also be worse. It's in like a quantum state. It's Schrodinger's cat of could it be worse? Could it be better? It's hard to quantify, but rather than asking that question, is it good or is it enough? Is it good? Is it serving me?
That's great. I love that.
And then at that point, you can push or not. So, Michael,
it's a similar trick. Sorry, you just gave me it's a similar trick of the mind of saying it's like gratitude, right? You leveraging gratitude. So instead of saying in our daily life, I have to go to the store, it's like I get to go. It's like that little subtle trick of the mind actually changes the entire outlook of the experience.
Yeah, no, the words have so much power. There's like those kind of words. The word but and is one of those like power words. So many people say like, hey man, thank you for coming on, but we have to go. It's like, no, thank you for coming on and we have to go, because that but negates everything you said in front of it. So you can tell your wife like, I love you, but you're pissing me off. It's like, I love you and you're pissing me off. Like those two things can be true simultaneously, which is get down into a quantum physics rabbit hole, which you can go down that rabbit hole too. I would love that. But maybe next time. But Michael, thank you so much for coming on. This has been one of the most fun conversations I've had in a while. So all of the descriptions for Michael and Retire US is going to be down in the descriptions. Guys, if you've got value today, please hit that like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment if you're just listening on audio only. And most importantly, share the Fi Guys with one person. I don't say that in order to grow our audience to as big as we possibly can. I guess a little bit I do, but the bigger reason is I want more people to come along this journey with you, because there's an old Nigerian proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And this journey of financial independence, this journey of life, ideally it's a far one. Ideally it's going to take time. And there's going to be times you're going to fall, you're going to trip up. You're going to want somebody there to help pick you up to continue that journey together. So Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our audience members. I'm Chris. He's Michael. We'll see you later.
Thank you, brother.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.